I did see the live stream going.
Says it's going now.
Yep.
For the moment, it's working.
I'm seeing the stream takes about 30 seconds to actually come up. Okay, it looks like it's streaming again.
It's not working.
The stream takes about 30 seconds to actually come up. Okay, it looks like it's streaming again. You have YouTube open.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It just, this time it opened. It did not the previous time. Let me see what happens this time. Okay. Is it, can everybody hear me okay this time?
Yes.
We can hear you, but do you get an echo?
No, you know what? I think you're right, Dan. I think that it had opened.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it the first time. This time I saw the extra tab pop open.
Okay, so yeah, you were getting the live stream, and the live stream is about 20 seconds, 30 seconds behind the actual. So I think we're good. And I see the live stream on YouTube, and it's in good health and everything, so we're good.
Okay. We're fashionably late.
Ready for me to start?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all. Y'all are slow. Welcome, everybody. Nice to have you. Hi, Keith. How fun to have someone we can see on screen. Thanks for being here tonight, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well, or at least well enough. We will get right into our meeting. I have no comments, so I'll turn right to you, Jamie.
I have a lot of comments. So just some updates that I think everybody needs to be aware of. And I know there's been in a lot of our communications, but I just wanted to go over a few things and then offer opportunities for people to ask questions if you have questions. The first one is budget capital project. So the budget capital project board vacancy seats, all of those items are 100% absentee ballots. And so we are mailing approximately 18,000 absentee ballots out, postage paid, returned. We're trying to communicate that the best we can. They have to be back in our possession by June 9th at 5 p.m. That's when the polls will close. If they're not back in our possession by that time, then they won't count towards the vote. And so we're really trying to get that message out there so that people, they don't wait till the last second to mail it back and risk that issue. We will have a drop box in our vestibule on that June 9th day for anybody that's rushing in, but we'd prefer to avoid that simply because if we're supposed to be social distancing and self-quarantining still at that point, that it'd be best, for people to use the mail. And
Jamie, when you say a drop box, do you mean at the district office?
Yeah, district office in the vestibule. Thank you for clarifying that. Just kudos to Deb Sunlove, who's, you can see her behind me there a little bit. She is just working incredibly hard coordinating this whole entire process. She has a team of folks ready to come in to help stuff all the envelopes. And then we'll have a team come in when it's the time, time to count the votes. Also kudos to, I believe Dan Bowman was part of this a bit, and Tracy Lindsay with creating scannable ballots that our attorney's office has taken a look at and believes that they're fully compliant, and that will save a lot of time. We'll still count them, but just having that secondary option is really helpful. So great job with all of that. So there's that piece. Matt will present the budget shortly in a little bit. Usually he and I go back and forth, but giving this format, it just makes it's less confusing. And so we'll have Matt do the budget and perhaps hopefully board adoption tonight. Capital project videos, and I see some hands went up and I'll stop after I talk about this. Capital project videos that we've been working on, Matt Fitch, Brian Nolan, John Palomini, and Jeannie have started. And they're ready to go. We have a 10-minute really in-depth video and then a 2-minute video that will be more for social media. And kudos to Caroline Chapman for putting it all together and really making a really pretty fantastic final product. Matt and I will be doing some of our budget and capital project tour. So we're, I think, with Kiwanis this week and Rotary next week. We're Zooming with those groups to present. And we'll present however we can. We'll try to we'll definitely do a forum like we've been doing on Thursdays with a variety of topics on budget and capital project, and just recording those and putting those out as much as we can so people are informed. I have other things, but I'll stop there because there seem to be questions.
I had Beth first.
So just to be safe and make sure people get it in the mail, the 9th is a Tuesday. Would you tell people that they should have it in the mail by the 5 o'clock on Saturday?
I hate to even tell them what day and time to have it in the mail by, because once I do that, and if we don't receive it, then then the error is ours for the directions we gave them.
Am I better off to back it up and tell them just mail it on Friday? Like, when are they going to get it?
I would tell them just to mail it as soon as they can. Receive it, fill it out, and mail it right back in.
Okay. Do you know when they're going out?
22nd?
The goal is no later than the 26th. It would be nice that Friday before, but I can't guarantee that.
Yeah, so no later than the 26th is what our plan is. As you might guess, putting all this together has been monumental, and thank goodness for Deb.
Yes, thank you.
Who else had their hand up? I don't see anybody else, Jamie.
Okay, the next topic, I'd like to do a share screen with you briefly. This is on the grading piece. So this was discussed in the forum and it's been part of our communication today. I hope you're able to see it. But this is the rubric we used for the third marking period. And in order to have credit for the third marking period, a student would have had to have received 6 points. So they would have had to demonstrate minimal effort during the third quarter before closure. This was before closure. So if they put together minimal effort for the third quarter, they received credit. We're using the same rubric for the fourth quarter, but we're going to translate it into a numerical grade. And so as you can see, the highest somebody would get is a 12 points, and that is by displaying consistent effort. And a student was really astute. She made the, the connection that really this rubric is about how hard people are working or the effort rather than content knowledge. She's absolutely right. And that is what this is based on, because we believe it's very difficult to assess students and everybody has a different circumstance at home. So all we're looking for is that people are putting together effort to their capability. And so by giving consistent effort day in, day out each week, someone could earn a 12 and anywhere all the way down to a 3. 3 would be the lowest. Down below, you'll see if somebody earns between 11 and 12 points on the rubric, they'll have a 100 for the fourth quarter. So that could mean they would get 2 4s and maybe a 3. That would, they would get a 100. 9 to 10 points would be a 90. 7 to 8 would be an 80. 6 points would be the 70. So that's minimal effort. And then 4 points to 5 points would be a 65. So maybe they have a 1, but a couple 2s. And then if it's 3 across the board, the lowest that a student would get would be a 60. And so really when we're looking at all of this, Tracy ran a lot of analytics with Dan's help as well, looking at all levels of learners and achievement, and then taking actual students and then comparing it to how they actually did in quarters 1 and 2 to see how it all played out. And really this erred on the side of students and was quite accurate, in fact, the final calculation. So I'm going to skip around here a little bit, but I just kind of mentioned that fourth quarter will be weighted 20% of a student's overall average. We looked at different percentages. We looked at a 35, 35, 30 and a variety of different percentages, but this one really seemed to work best. So how it will actually look is first quarter will be worth 40% of a student's grade, second quarter 40%, third quarter 20, and then for the third quarter, if a student received credit, we'll add 2 points to their overall average. If they receive no credit, it will have no impact on their overall average. It'll just look at the first, second, and fourth quarter for those averages. There's a notation at the bottom that if a student engages in remote learning at the minimal level during closure, that the lowest we'll give them as a final grade is a 65. We're erring on the side of students. And then additionally, it's just a notation here. If any parents feel like their child has been negatively impacted by this closure with their grade, that they should reach out to the building principal. And in the forum, I stated with staff and with the community that this is where we need to use our professional judgment. If a parent reaches out and makes a case that their child was negatively impacted, look at that data that they're sharing and err on the side of students. Use that professional judgment to do what's right for kids and to kind of err on their side. Now, We do have some semester only courses, second semester courses, for example, and this is how their grade will be calculated. Their grade will be the fourth quarter grade, same calculation using that rubric. They get 11 to 12 points, they'll get a 100 for that course. And then they'll look at the third quarter, and if they got credit, they'll add 2. If there was no credit, it'll be just no impact. Highest grade that we will give is a 100. We won't give a 102, it would just be a 100. And that's how second quarter grades will be, or second semester only grades will be calculated. And then I should also mention, I don't think is on here, but I will say this, progress reports are coming out soon. And we're just giving one of these 4 comments when they go out to families grades 6 through 12. They're on track and they're probably estimated between the 90 to 100 range, on track, and it looks like more of a 90 to 80 level of effort, and just kind of so forth and so on. So parents kind of see where their child is trending before the quarter ends and can change their trajectory or reach out and ask for assistance if they need it. The one thing that is not mentioned so much on here is the UPK 5 grading. Again, we do standards-based grading at the primary elementary level. And what we will do is we'll give narrative, teachers will write narratives based on the standards they covered during the closure, noting that they can't cover all of them. So they will know which ones they covered and give a narrative based on the ones they covered and note the ones that they were unable to cover, because that's important information going into next school year. So those teachers will know what they need to work on to fill some of those academic gaps. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say a big thank you to Matt Schrage for really doing a lot of the delivering of this message with staff, with grade level leaders and department leaders and everybody. And so really did a great job putting this together in a visual form and being able to explain it to everybody. So Matt, do you feel like is there anything you'd like to add to this before we take this questions on this topic?
No, I think you pretty much covered it all. We're hoping to send out the instructions later this evening so that teachers can engage in the progress report. So that information is forthcoming. But again, as you mentioned, just big thanks to Tracy, who's really had to build almost an alternative system using Google in order to be able to just facilitate this process. So we really greatly appreciate all that he put into it.
Thank you. I didn't know if there's any questions on the grading. I know that I fielded some of them, but there may be more.
Can you unshare your screen, Jamie?
Sorry.
Are you done with it? Thank you.
Yep.
That's okay. Are there questions on grading? No, I think we're okay. Thank you.
Okay, and so more information. Let me see where I put that document. So I think during let me go on. I think when I was switching and trying to get the feedback to go away, I closed out on one of the items, so I'll come back to it. Some of you may have watched in the news today that the Finger Lakes area looks like it will be reopening a bit. And so that'll start this Friday. And there are some low risk recreational pieces in there that I was not aware of. Things like it literally listed tennis would be permissible. Things like that, it listed some items. So just something to be aware of. If you map it out, and I shared this in the forum last week, if you look at the governor's phase-in plan and you map it out, it really puts us end of June, early July, as long as we trend in the right direction with hospitalizations and infection rates. And it truly is a 2-week look back. If there's any kind of delay between the 2 weeks, then that would put our school opening a little bit later on. So it's just something to be aware of, and certainly something we should look at. We believe we're going to be the first region in New York State to start reopening. At least that's how the governor has coined it, and Bob Duffy has coined it several times. So like I said, something to be aware of. I did find the document, or I actually refound it. So I'm going to share the next screen with you, if you don't mind. A lot of questions have been coming up regarding commencement and what are we doing for our seniors. So thank you to Mr. Tenney and his team and Caroline Chapman for putting this visual together. We will start sharing it either tonight or tomorrow, but definitely it'll be in my communication on Wednesday. This will be one of the things I want to focus on. So we have a number of things here. I just want to kind of work through it a little bit, but Friday, May 15th, we are going to do a video launch that was created. This will be a social media launch that shows all of our seniors, It's set to music. It's really well done. Chris Van Dyne put it together, and it's really a touching, heartwarming video. So we'll launch that and we'll put it out there for people to enjoy. On May 18th, there's a couple things. We will begin to spotlight individual seniors, and we'll go through all of them. We have nearly 300 seniors, but we will spotlight all of them through social media and a variety of formats there, but primarily on Twitter. But again, it will be in other places as well. Also that week, we'll begin to deliver the personalized graduation signs that between Vern Tenney and Roberta Biddle and student government, they've made free to homes one personalized yard sign for every single senior, which is a great thing that they really rallied to do. Wednesday, June 3rd, we're going to arrange a cap and gown pickup. So in the bus loop, more information will be coming about that they'll come through and they'll be handed out then. Wednesday, June 10th, I had a meeting on Friday with Chief Hedworth and City Manager John Goodwin to talk about a concept of a senior parade. Again, we need to put a lot of controls in place to do this, to make sure people are being safe, staying in their cars, socially distancing, all of that. But the premise would be that typically we have seniors walk through the buildings, and this year we're going to have them actually walk through the middle school as well as the primary elementary school. It's kind of a new thing we were going to add. So this concept, we don't have all the details, but we would have them line up in their cars. We need them to sign up so we know how many are coming to begin with. And we provide school vehicles for some folks and that maybe don't have a vehicle and they can ride with us. But we would have them line up at the primary elementary school, come out, go past district office, go up past the middle school, past the academy, and then down into Bracefield where they would have the stadium lights on and lit up with 2020 on the scoreboard for the class of 2020. And we would then designate also places around the route on our property where some of our staff could stand and hold signs and cheer them on, socially distance. And the police has really said that they would help us kind of control this and make sure it's safe. And we would have a lot of supervisors on duty too to make it happen as well. So that is June 10th. We will provide more plans as time comes along. June 15th is our hope for a yearbook pickup. We think we'll have them right around then. The company just reopened and is running yearbooks now, so it's time sensitive, but as soon as we have those, we will provide those deliveries. The three plans that we've discussed a little bit for commencement, we're still gathering student data. That may steer a little bit of this. Plan one would be standard commencement with some restrictions. It's unlikely, I shared that during the forums, it's highly unlikely. That's probably a stretch, definitely a stretch. Plan two would be commencement at CMAC with significant restrictions where it would be immediate family only, face coverings, a lot of restrictions in place. I've talked with the county police, the city police, the security at FLCC, and the folks at CMAC and Mary Beer, our director of public health. And they feel like if we work together on a plan that it could be doable. But if we can't guarantee safety, we would go on to plan three, which would be a completely digital commencement. And we would piece it together, we would stream it, and there'd be a watch party, and every graduate would get a copy of that. Again, we've surveyed the students. They may provide us options and ideas that we hadn't thought of that might substitute one of these plans. But we will have that data hopefully in the coming days. And we will make a final decision on June 8th. That will provide us 3 weeks to put it together, whichever direction we're going, which is a tight time crunch. But we figured 3 weeks we could make it happen. And then the last thing would be the senior ball and senior sunset. Those are traditions. We've talked about converting it and calling it a senior gala, doing it sometime in the summer, late July, early August, where it's more of a social gathering, maybe near the lake where we can watch a sunset in a planned fashion. But again, a lot of that depends on what we're allowed and not allowed to do. But we just wanted that on people's radars so they know these are the things we're doing. I'd also say that if you watch the news, you're seeing a lot of different things happening in a lot of different communities to honor seniors. And, I've reached out to a lot of those communities to ask, how is it being done? These are things that we can handle. But for example, the news did a really nice piece on Seneca Falls where they had all the seniors posted on Main Street, the banners. That was completely done and driven by a couple parents, paid for, driven, and happened. So I guess my point is, these are the things we can do. If parents, community members, businesses have ideas of other ways we can honor students, I would ask them to just reach out to myself, Mr. Tenney, pitch their idea, and we'll let them know if we can support it or not. But certainly we can't do it all alone, but these are the ideas we feel like we have and we can manage. I didn't know if there's any questions about that. I know a few of you reached out to me about this over the last few days.
Questions regarding commencement? Okay.
All right. We're trying to project when the last day of school will be for students and staff. We believe it'll be sometime around the June 15th to June 18th timeframe. Remember, we worked over April break, and so that would back those days off from there. And Memorial Day weekend will likely work Friday, but have Monday off since it's the federal holiday. We think that's the direction we'll be going. But we would earn those days back at the end of the school year. So I hope to have a decision on the actual last day of school for students and staff next week. I would actually need to, in the June board meeting, bring a revised 2019-2020 school calendar for the board to approve. Just so it's on record that way. Just wanted to give you a heads up about that. That's something we're still working through. And we don't believe we need any direction from the governor's office on that, because his executive orders didn't dictate anything about the last day of school. It just dictated the 180 days. And once we reach the 180 days, it's our interpretation regional across the state that boards of education can redo the calendar for the 1920 school year. And then the very last thing, we'll start advertising this Wednesday evening. Monroe County School Districts, the Athletic Association discussed and decided that they wanted to honor senior spring athletes this Thursday night at 8:20 p.m. by lighting scoreboards in stadiums. And so since it's kind of a county initiative, I know we're not in Monroe County, but that's where we compete. Those are the schools we compete with. We'll be doing the same. I've talked to the city police, and they've been, again, very gracious and willing to help. We'll have some paid supervisors wearing PPEs, the face masks, the social distancing, everything. Everyone will have to stay in the cars. We'll cone areas off. And really the premise is that at 8:20, the scoreboards and lights, where there's lights, will light up for 20 minutes. And we're asking seniors with their families of spring athletes only to take a drive-through. We'll have, hopefully, the varsity coaches will be there with their face masks, just waving and sending positive message to them. They'll drive through, they could take a picture of the scoreboard or stadium in their car and proceed through. Again, this is something we have to make sure people are staying in their cars and following the rules that we set forth. But we certainly felt that if all the schools we're competing against and with, since they're doing this, that we certainly ought to do it too, and just make sure we have controls in place. So tomorrow, Mike McLean and Jim Simmons will be at all of our stadiums putting cones out and determining traffic flow. And we already have those supervisors and police SROs set to help us manage it as well. But it won't, think about it, it won't be all the same places. So Evansfield at Evansfield for the baseball team, it'll just be the seniors for the baseball team. They'll drive in, take their picture and drive out. Softball, they'll come up where students park and come out. Track will go in where staff parks and behind the school to see the track, Jack's track and the scoreboard, and then out. And then I think lacrosse players would go through Braves Stadium. So it'll be not overwhelming. It shouldn't be anyway. We worry that other non-seniors will come with their families. And although we appreciate the sentiment, we'd really like to keep this just to seniors. So we will start promoting that Wednesday afternoon, evening. We didn't want to give a ton of lead time, although anybody listening now can start saying, but I didn't want to catch any of you off guard by it.
Questions?
That's all I have, and that's a lot. And I probably could have done a lot more.
Well, it's just a reflection of how much everybody's doing to try to capture some joy around this senior year. And I think everybody really appreciates the efforts, and the ideas are terrific. So thank you. Thank you to everybody involved in doing that. Let's see, we have minutes up for approval. I'll ask for motions, please. By show of hands, Jen, Bill, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously, Deb. And we have warrants. Jen and or Beth, will you make a motion, please? by hand. Beth is first and a second by Jen. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously, Deb. Educational presentation, Matt?
Thank you, Jeannie. Good evening, everyone. Joining us for tonight's educational presentation is Mr. Keith Pedzik, who is our IB coordinator. He's here to give us an update on what we have deemed our IB program deep dive committee, which started way back in the fall. And the committee has met throughout the school year. And tonight he's here to present some of our initial findings and some next steps for us to consider, as it'll be a process we continue with after the conclusion of this school year. But we'd like to welcome Keith, and Keith's done a tremendous job of leading this group, as well as synthesizing all the information that we've gathered throughout the course of the school year to be able to present to us this evening. So Keith, welcome and thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I'm going to go ahead and screen share for everybody the presentation that I'm going to make. And there we are. So good evening. Thanks for having me tonight and being able to present to you on our IB program review. We've been involved in this program review since 2018 of December, so a little bit over a year. This was initiated by the IB. Every 5 years, we have to conduct a program review and present the findings of the review to the IB, and that is what kind of kicked this all off. So our IB program review was a 12-month process, and it largely involved our IB faculty, although we did survey IB parents and current students. We had to examine the needs around curriculum, interdisciplinary study, and the IB core, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through the presentation. And in November of 2019, we submitted the program evaluation and an action plan for the next 5 years. We have not yet gotten feedback on that program review. At the same time as we were wrapping up our program review for the IB, we began something called our deep dive. This was initiated by Superintendent Farr. We determined that the purpose of this deep dive was to explore the role of the IB in the district. So we researched neighboring IB schools, growing IB schools across New York, and we were looking for steps to reinvigorate the program. The investigating included, we went to Hilton, we had some consultation with our contacts at the IB, and I did some teleconferencing with schools in Eastern New York and Long Island. This is the membership of the Deep Dive Committee. You'll see that our faculty was a representation of AP, IB, and Gemini. I think the purpose behind this, it was an attempt to get our faculty who were very familiar with advanced coursework options and could talk about the different requirements of those advanced coursework options to be present and to get their perspective. And in many instances, this is important because we co-seat our AP, IB, and Gemini in different combinations for our students. So that is the kind of foundation of the committee. I'm going to talk a little bit about current state. This chart here shows the total number of students we've had in a given cohort from the start of exams in 2005 through to 2018. The blue is the total number of diplomas we received in a cohort. The orange is a student who completed all requirements but perhaps did not earn the diploma. And then the gray is the total number of students that dropped over the course of those 2 years. The one variation on this chart that I would point out is 2019. In 2019, so last May, we earned 4 diplomas and we had 6 students continue on from junior to senior year. So that gives you a snapshot of the way that our IB students looked at the beginning of the current school year. This chart shows how we fare against the rest of the world. The red is the mean point score of our IB students, and the blue is the mean point score for the rest of the world. And in most cases, we do really well in our results against other IB schools. So at the end of both our program evaluation and our IB deep dive, we came to recognize that what we were doing with the IB was working in an efficiency model with the IB. We were maximizing enrollments in our courses, maximizing the teaching assignments contract, and making decisions based about the IB based on other curriculum that we already had in place and how we might merge IB with an AP class or a Gemini course. So the column on the right suggests some of the issues that have emerged about our participation in the IB. We are doing a lot of co-seating of our courses. This is a challenge for our teachers to address multiple curriculums. We have teachers who are preparing students for several different exams at the end of their course. It's a challenge to address the different methodologies required. The IB does require best practices around inquiry-based instruction, looking at our role in an international picture and interdisciplinary study. We found that there was a challenge for counseling to counsel around advanced coursework with so many options, and a challenge for like students who are interested in engaging in advanced coursework. How do I decide to proceed with AP or IB? How do I know if the diploma program is right for me? And I think maybe a challenge of branding in the community, a lot of different messages about the value of, or not the value, or the purpose of these different programs and what their benefit might be to families. And so this kind of gives a snapshot of our findings over the past year. So this committee, we're looking at, with Mr. Tenney leaving and a new principal coming in, we wanted to continue the work of the committee into the fall of 2020 with a new leader. And I think a lot of what will happen it'll be necessary to get input from our new principal. But we will be continuing to look at some different models for program implementation. So we'll be looking at that efficiency model where we're maximizing enrollments and teaching assignments. But we'll be looking at a couple of other models too as we come back together. Maybe an efficiency model where we are uncovering options that are not currently in place that we could easily implement, say something like a sports and exercise science paired with a biology or a health class. And then we'll also be looking just in terms of brainstorming, creative thinking at an assets or zero-based model, really looking at the program based on strengths of our faculty, interests of students, what they are looking for from such a program. And we put aside in the early planning stages larger cultural contexts to kind of give us some creative thinking. So the future direction would be right now to reconvene the committee in the next school year, continue to explore current state and to make some final recommendations about program direction. And as of now, IB has not responded to program evaluation, and that of course would come to you once we had it. They are in much the same state. I'm going to stop my share for a moment. They are in much the same state as a lot of other educational organizations. They are building planes in the air while they're flying them. So I couldn't guess at when we'll get feedback. Thank you.
Questions for Keith or comments or feedback? Jen?
Keith, thank you for a great presentation. I would like to hear your perspective on what you think are the great strengths of the Canandaigua IB program. What are you most proud of?
First, I'm really proud that every year we have a group of students who come together as this kind of community towards shared common goals. They work together, and you know, it's kind of unlike anything else. The kids doing this, all of the assessments, the extended essay, they come together, and it is a little family that supports one another. And you know, every year I can point to one or two students who do not have another family like that here, and that kind of sense of connection and belonging, I think, stays with kids, and it's something that they speak to. So that's I think a great strength. And this is a program. We offer a lot of great things for our students and our families. This is one of those things that is meant to work together rather than as separate cafeteria style pieces. And I think that's a really excellent strength of that as an academic offering. I'll stop there. I could keep going, but that's.
Thank you.
Milton?
Keith, you talked a little bit about the program review and who made up the program review. Is it mostly done in-house? Do you invite other school districts in to give you input on the way that you're doing it, maybe give you some different insights? Would that be a benefit in a future program eval or deep dive?
Thank you. Great question. We didn't invite anybody internally during program evaluation. The Western New York Consortium of Baccalaureate Schools, there are 20 schools in the Western New York region, say from I-81 over to Lake Erie, north to Messina, south to Corning. Those coordinators, we meet on a fairly regular basis and use each other as coordinators to talk about our programs, what we're going through in program evaluation. So it was easy for me to say, you know what, we've got to go and look at Hilton as a kind of model school in the area for what they're doing with the IB. And those coordinators are a phone call and email away to get feedback. So I feel fairly connected to other programs in our strengths and our strengths and weaknesses.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, to be continued, Keith.
Yes, certainly.
Thanks
Thanks everyone for your time tonight. Stay well.
Appreciate it. Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Keith.
Bye-bye.
Matt, are you, there you are. Are you ready for budget presentation now? Thank you.
Let me share my screen here. Can you see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we're hoping tonight to adopt the 2021 budget. As we go through the presentation, we'll discuss the revenues, our tax cap, the three-part budget, the outlay projects, how much reserves and fund balance we're using to balance this budget, estimated tax bill, the different propositions, and the vote date. So we'll start right off with the revenue. The majority of our revenue, as we know, is our tax levy. It makes up about 61% of our total revenues. And this, we would go out to the tax cap of 2.19%. The other major area of our revenue, about 34%, is our state and federal aid. A majority of that is state aid, just over $27 million projected for 2021. A $300,000 increase that's related to expense-based aids. So transportation aid, BOCES aid, the more we expense in a given year, the higher the aid coming back is the following year. The other area that you'll notice a change in is the interest and penalties. The last couple of years, we've been very fortunate in getting some return on our investment. with the interest rates decreasing, bottoming out over the last couple months, we've had to adjust our projections. So we've reduced that projection by $100,000. So overall, the increase in our revenues, about 1.76% from year to year of $1,340,000. So the proposed budget will be $77,702,662. On the tax levy history, we started showing this a couple years ago, and we presented this in each of our presentations this year. Going back to the beginning of the tax cap in 2012-13 to today, the blue line, the maximum allowable limit, that tax levy limit, the green line, the actual levy that the district has gone out at. So you can see that the district has never exceeded that levy limit. And this is the second time we've been out at the limit itself. You'll notice that the blue line is in a downward slope. We expect that to continue in the future, especially since a large portion of this calculation is based on consumer price index between 0 and 2%. With the economy as it is now, we expect that number to be much lower in future years. So we could expect to see that blue line to continue to decrease. State aid, this is the big news. Right now, our foundation aid is flat compared to the 2019-20 level. At this time last year, we received a $410,000 increase to our foundation aid. So we didn't receive that increase this year. As you recall, in January, February, we received our governor's number. We had a due minimum that we were listed. It wasn't a large increase, about $120,000. When the state adopted the budget, where we typically would expect an increase, obviously the pandemic had set in, and we did not receive the governor's increase, and we remained flat. The issue out there currently is, the state is struggling with its finances through this shutdown, and the state has picked 3 timeframes that they can reduce our state aid. The first measuring period that they used is through April 30th of this year, compared to the February revenue projections. And they can reduce our aid, at any point here. We still don't have that information by how much. The numbers that have been thrown out is 20 to 30%, which would be just a massive reduction in aid. But we're still waiting for that information. And with the new timelines of the June 9th, we really need to move forward with adopting our budget. The 3-part budget, we break it apart in administrative, program, and capital. The area that we're increasing the largest and that makes up the largest portion of our budget is the program. That's increasing $1,265,000. And it makes up about 78% of our budget. That's where we want our budget to be focused on. That is anything that revolves around students. That's our transportation, that is our classrooms, our teachers, all our staff that works directly with students. Staffing changes. The only new additions to our budget are 2 elementary teachers in the primary elementary school. These were already hired. They were hired in January of this year. It was due to our kindergarten and 2nd grade enrollment increasing dramatically in August of this year, unexpectedly. So those positions are already filled. They were filled during the year, but because last year they weren't budgeted, now they will need to be budgeted. They've appearing on the slide here. Staffing changes due to the difficulty that we foresee, going forward with state aid and finances and the economy as a whole. We've elected to look at attrition as a way of balancing the budget. So all of these pieces of attrition are not ideal and not something that originally we were planning on doing. But as we got into the budget process, these were things that we determined we need to do to protect the financial health of the district going forward, especially in the long term. So you'll see the positions here. There's 8 FTE reduction. The total savings of these positions, had they remained in the budget, would have been an additional $574,261. So you'll notice that there's significant savings with reducing positions of this nature. Included in the budget continues to be our capital outlay projects. The $100,000 project for the primary elementary school, that's going to be the window balancing units for the windows so they can open and close properly. They're very difficult to maneuver at all. We get aid on that the following year of 73.2%. And the other is the $700,000 central receiving and storage facility. These are part of our long-range maintenance and financial plans. They go along with our capital project plans. It reduces the spikes to our tax cap, either up or down, and it reduces the cost of purchasing supplies and maintenance on our on some of our items by having a central receiving area and storage. Another way to look at our budget is in graph form. So you'll see on the left in the green the total appropriations of $77,702,000. The majority of that, as we discussed before, is the tax levy, then followed by state and federal aid, and then the appropriated fund balance of $1,882,578. The way that's broken down is a slight increase in the amount of employees retirement system ERS reserve that we're appropriating of $1 million. And then you'll see the workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, EVLAR, and tax certiorari reserves that we're appropriating to balance this budget. The one increase here that you'll notice is the unemployment insurance. We still are not sure what everything will look like in the future. We've increased our budget from $20,000 a year to $100,000 a year on that budget line. We've offset that with the increase in unemployment insurance reserve. If we don't need to spend it, we obviously won't use the reserve as well. So it's a way to offset each other, but also protect us, if the closure continues into next year. And then fund balance, a slight increase from last year to this year to $289,578. Estimated tax bill, we use $150,000 assessed value to compare from one year to the next. As you recall, when we present our budget, we use last year's assessed values to determine the tax rate. So last year at this time, when we were presenting the budget, the tax rate we were estimating was $19.12 per $1,000 of assessed value. The actual tax rate for the current year was $18.77. So currently, using last year's assessed values, $150,000 home, we're estimating the tax rate to be $19.18. Star exemption to be $560. That's an estimate. So our tax bill after star, an individual would have a tax bill of $2,317 on that $150,000 home. That's an annual change of $61.50. Projected versus actual. So when we look at our tax rates, and the gray bar is where we projected at each of our budgets. The green bar is where we actually determined where the actual rate was. So you'll notice in each year, we project a rate from the prior year's assessed value. When we actually get the assessed values, that rate tends to be lower. So we would project and anticipate that happening again. As we've discussed in each of our budget presentations, this is a multi-year budgeting. We're not sure what, even our state aid is for this upcoming year, much less in the future. The state came out within the last couple of weeks. Their 5-year projection is a $61 billion deficit. And some of the presentations I've been on is that they're concerned that this will be a deeper loss in revenue and for at least the same period of time as the Great Recession that began in 08, 09 with our gap elimination adjustments and those types of things. So we really need to look at the long-term plan as we go through this. Will state aid stay flat or be reduced in future years? How will a struggling economy, how will that affect the CPI and our tax cap? How will TRS and ERS rates, our retirement system rates, contribution rates change if the investments that these systems receive are lower, which is, they look at that's where the majority of their income comes from. What will future health insurance increases be? So these are all things that are out of our control, that are going to be major factors this upcoming year and in the next several years. As part of our propositions, we have several, along with the budget, we have several propositions on the ballot. The first one's the capital project. This project is $61,700,000. It uses $10,600,000 in capital reserves. It's all asset preservation and safety. As Jamie had mentioned during his notes, there's a video that will be out to give a lot of detail on that. There's no marginal increase to the tax levy. The project is 73.2% state aidable on the approved aidable expenses. Along with the capital reserves, we don't anticipate a marginal increase to the tax levy with this project. The second proposition on the ballot is transportation, purchase of buses. We purchase buses each year. This year, we're proposing to purchase 7 74 passenger buses, and we'll use the transportation reserve and fund balance. And there will be no increase on taxes to purchase those buses. There's one Board of Education seat available. It's 1 5-year term. The third proposition is Wood Library funding. The Wood Library gives us their budget, their tax levy, and we put it on our ballot for the vote. It's $720,268, an increase of 2.86%. So an increase of 90 cents for a home assessed at $150,000. And so obviously the big news is the budget vote now being June 9th by absentee ballot only. As Jamie had mentioned before, they need to be received by 5 p.m. on June 9th to be counted. And they'll be sent out hopefully by May 26th. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Matt, could I ask a question about slide number 15, prop 1? I don't remember seeing this wording before, and maybe I've just forgotten the no marginal increase. I don't remember the word marginal ever before, and I don't know what it means there.
So what that means is that, our projections are showing a flat, when we present these, it's showing that our debt service should stay flat and our, as we go from year to year. But there's always the potential, because it is a state aid project, that the aid could be slightly higher or lower. So, and that we don't want to say there's no increase to the tax levy, because there could be it might be a couple cents here up or down. That we project the levy to not be affected by this, but they're depending on percentage of state aid once the project's been approved, and the amount that is aidable. Percentage of that project aidable will determine the actual debt service for that, the local share of it.
So is marginal like an industry word? Like no expected increase is what makes sense to me in my world, but is it industry standard to use that word, or?
I don't know if it's industry standard. It's a pretty common term for this, and is the recommended language from our financial advisors.
Good to know. Thank you. Other questions? Beth?
Can you give me the elevator speech about why the $700,000 project is a standalone versus being part of the capital project?
Yes. So the $700,000 project is unaided. So it helps.
That's a standalone?
That's part of it. Yep. So it's unaided. So that helps the project, the percentage of the project that the $61.7 million project, the percentage of that to be aided higher. It also continues with keeping our tax cap and our debt service level flat. It reduces that spike up or down from year to year in both our budget and our tax cap.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John?
Couple questions. One is for Jamie, one for Matt. Matt, the assessors that you've spoken with, what's the tax base looking like? Are they? I know that some are evaluating this year, and I know you have some new construction, but not a lot. Have you? What have you heard, if anything, from the assessors? And for Jamie, the ballot that's going to be sent out, is it a 1-pager or a 2-pager? In other words, front and back, or is it all on one page?
You want to do yours first, Matt?
Sure. So you're asking about the assessed values?
Right. All right, the tax base. So what are they seeing with the new construction, with the re-evals that are going on? I know Hopewell's doing it. We have a little bit of Gorham, they're doing one. I don't know of anyone else that's doing it.
So, yeah, so the preliminary tax rolls are out there. Without having them in front of me, I can't speak to the amount that they're going up or down. There are no major revals that I'm aware of that are going on. That the major ones, city and township. And of course, I'm not sure where their equalization rates will come in either. I'd have to really look at those tentative rolls and compare them to the prior year to be able to do that. Without them in front of me, I can't speak well enough to that.
That's all right. I didn't know if you guys talked or if there was any communication between the districts and the assessors. But if not, that's fine. There's no way to know.
Yeah.
For my part, so the ballot that will go out is all one-sided. Everything's on one side.
Good.
Thank you.
Kudos to Deb.
Yes, round of applause, Deb. Any other questions for Matt? Milton?
So Matt, and I don't know why, just thinking about this question now, but you noted a 2-position mid-year increase. Are we looking out and seeing sort of what that might look like in August in terms of kindergarten enrollments, or have we seen sort of any sort of change or increase at this point, or is it too early to tell?
It's still too early.
Maybe that's okay.
Yeah, and Jamie, maybe you can speak better to this. We're still going through that kindergarten registration process. But yeah, it's still too early to tell. We projected 230, I believe was the number off the top of my head, of kindergarten students coming in. We do, Tracy Lindsay does a great job with this. He uses multiple analysis. Many years he's right on. And then some years there's just a anomaly, higher or lower net this year. And it was a lot of late registrations in August, mid-August, that ended up causing those class sizes to increase. Right now we're projecting 230. The latest numbers we received last week, I believe, we're still in the early process, around 175. Is that right, Jamie?
Yep.
So we're still on track, but whether that number ends up being higher or lower, I couldn't give you a best guess on that.
Yeah, Tracy changed his analytics for this one. For whatever reason, he's always spot on, but for whatever reason last year, like we said, we had a lot of movements in the last week or two. So he changed some of the analytics based on live birth and a few other factors and compared it last year. Had he used that process, he would have been within 10. And then also compared it to previous years and would have been spot on in previous years as well with this new process. So the new process led him to about 230, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was at least 10 or 15 higher than what his old calculation would have given him for this coming year. So again, it's a little bit of a guessing game. There is data that's reliable that we can count on, but we're watching that closely.
Thank you.
Anything else for Jamie or Matt? So we're hoping to adopt the budget tonight. And so I will ask for motions, please. Michelle and Cheryl, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Great job, Matt. You're doing really a great job under really difficult circumstances, which is sort of the case every year, but this is on steroids, and you just continue to be steady and professional. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see, we have a consensus agenda and supplemental. I'll ask for motions, please. Beth, Jen, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Deb, thank you. And let's see, Michelle, 4 County update, I'm sorry. Beth, did you want to report out on 4 County?
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Cheryl? Are we skipping it?
No, it's okay. So we have an annual meeting that I'm pretty sure we're going to do by Zoom. Actually, wait, Regent Norwood, Regent Norwood is speaking. So that'll be a nice thing if people want to, sit in the comfort of their home and listen to him. We have our three president, first vice president, second vice president are basically rolling over from last year. It's a 1-year appointment. Traditionally, people keep the appointment for 2 years. And then we had to change some of our bylaws because we became a BOCES COSER last year, and the bylaws talk about membership. We don't have a membership anymore. You join the COSER. So we had to take that piece out. So while we were doing it, we cleaned up a couple things like all voting is 1 board, 1 vote, as opposed to 1 member, 1 vote. That's really the highlights of it. Don't you think, Cheryl? Okay, I think that's good.
Great, thank you.
Oh, so we have to, as a group, tell Deb to submit approval for all of that, I guess, to cast the ballot for the slate of officers and the change in the bylaws. So I guess I'd make a motion that as a board, we submit that vote.
Okay, I assume we need a second for that. So I'll ask for a second. Cheryl, questions or comments? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Michelle, finance is fun?
Not fun.
There's a question mark at the end of that these days.
Super easy report for me tonight because Matt, with his budget presentation, did most of the legwork. We also had a review of the first quarter claims by Lori Doolin. So everything is in good shape, and everything else was covered tonight in the meeting or through consent, the consensus agenda.
Thank you, Michelle. And let's see, district health and safety. Did a board member attend? John?
Yeah, Brian ran a fairly short meeting. We reviewed the district safety plan. Fill me in if I missed stuff, Brian, because I always do. We did the district safety plan. We also had Lorraine Ryan talk about potential costs involved what September might look like. And if we get involved in having to take temperatures and screen at the doors, what a nightmare that would be and what an incredible cost. She estimated the cost of just one of those machines at $30,000. And then she made a good point. A lot of people run hot, a lot of people run cold. Somebody might have strep. They walk in and their temperature is high, and you pull them aside. And then the catch is, how did they get there? Well, they just got off a school bus, and the other 30 kids that were on that bus already walked past them. So there's no answer. And that's why we have these guys that around here, they're getting paid to figure this complete mess out. And I'm glad it's not me. That's all I can say. Is there anything else, Brian, you think?
We talked a little bit too about where we are in terms of our employees that are currently, coming in. We have our custodial maintenance staff is at about 1/4 crew right now. And then starting next week, we're going to be at full capacity with them. They're going to start all working. I kind of went through some of the other folks' district office for the most part. People are coming in 1 day a week for a couple hours. Food service, as you know, is still running, but with a smaller crew. Bus mechanics continue to work for a shortened period of time for DOT inspections, and you have to keep the buses running once in a while to make sure they're running well. And then we talked, not in detail, but about some of the recovery plans, some of the stuff that Jamie talked about earlier.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Jamie, anything from you?
No, just kudos to everybody, the board, Comet, staff, students, families, community, just really every day touched and blown away by the generosity of folks and how they're all just making the best of this situation. So I'd feel remiss if I didn't say thank you.
Great. Priest, that's a nice note on which to end. Stay sane and stay healthy, everybody. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Jen and Milton. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Deb.